Welcome back, everyone, to Infineon Raceway and NASCAR Live. It is now officially summer, according to the calendar, and it feels like it out here in the wine country of Sonoma. And you can't go anywhere in the United States without finding that red Army and a lot of red number 8s. There's a lot of Jeff Gordon fans out here as well because he was born right down the road in Vallejo, California. And Jeff Gordon certainly is a story we continue to follow here on NASCAR Live. Let's very quickly get to our FedEx Racing Letter of the Week. And Walt from Joplin, Missouri wants to know, how does NASCAR determine garage positions? Well, Walt, the past champion, or the defending champion at the time, first of all, he gets his choice of garage stall. And then after that, according to where you run in the current NASCAR Nextel Cup point system, you get to choose where your garage stall is. And perhaps some of the advantage of that is being close to your hauler, and other than that, probably doesn't really matter too much where you're sitting in the garage. But thanks for the letter, Walt. We appreciate it. If you want to get your name on the tube with us here, go to speedtv.com, keyword FedEx, and send us your question, and just perhaps you may be on NASCAR Live with us for the FedEx Letter of the Week. Let's get you back now to Bob Dillner for the latest on the situation involving Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson's race cars.
Well, Johnny, just want to update you on the 24 of Jeff Gordon. The 48 has gone past the crate template and has actually passed that, but the 24 has not passed just yet. In fact, NASCAR just backed the 24 of Jeff Gordon out of that area, and the team and NASCAR are working together to try to get the left front fender issue fixed on this car. But right now there's a couple of pickup points on that claw that comes down over that fender, and what the issue is in between pickup point number 1 and pickup point number 2. What happened was the team had that area bowed out just a little bit. Well, they had to cut that area out, hand it to NASCAR, and then they actually had to fiberglass a new piece of sheet metal in there. Right now, it still did not fit the template, so they backed it out, and they are trying to get that remanufactured, bang it down a little bit so that those points actually meet up with NASCAR specs. So that's the story right down here, and we'll keep you updated throughout this program and throughout the day here on Speed. Rutledge?
Thanks, Bob. I have a little bit lighter news in the garage. AJ Allmendinger did a special conference yesterday here at the track, and you were quoted as saying that you're bringing sexy back to NASCAR.
Well, I mean, it's in the press kit. I mean, I don't even have to quote it anymore. It's in the press kit. All you have to do is read it. Kyle Petty would read a little bit more before he does the TV shows. He would have known that. But yeah, I mean, it's just my, you know, I'm gonna go with my natural oozing good looks. That's pretty much what it's the hair, which, as we talked about, is not as good as Boris's hair, which if we see right over there.
Yeah, Boris is right over here. Boris has great hair. His son there, the little blonde, he's got great hair.
They do have great hair. I don't think I can get my hair that poofy. I don't know how he gets in the helmet, but man, whatever he does it right because he's fast on the racetrack.
Now, you've got that whole vibe to where yours seems to not get changed no matter what.
It's aerodynamics. We don't really mess with anything on the car. I do it with the hair.
So that's, I mean, that's really, when you say you're bringing sexy back, you mean you're bringing style back. It's a whole package.
Yeah, from head to toe. You know, you don't just do it with one portion of your body. It's with everything.
They're gonna mess with you at trackside tonight. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, but you know, it's all right. You know, there's a few of them that wish they had the glue in the hair on trackside. We're not gonna name any names though.
No name naming today, you guys. No name naming, we promise. Can I say name naming?
Rutledge, you can say whatever you want so long as you do it in the next 10 seconds. But hey,
it's your shot.
All right, thanks a lot, Rutledge. And you know, someone's got to tell AJ that Rutledge already brought sexy and style back to NASCAR years ago. But if AJ wants to lay claim, that is fine. AJ, one of those guys making his first attempt at a NASCAR Nextel Cup race on a road course. We will see how he does in qualifying later this afternoon. Back with more. Sports.com and SpeedTV.com form the most powerful online team in NASCAR for breaking news, in-depth analysis, detailed driver stats, and more. Log on to SpeedTV.com now. Well, folks, in case you're just joining us here, a lot of breaking news coming out of the NASCAR Nextel Cup garage area situation involving Jeff Gordon's car and Jimmy Johnson's car. And Bob Dillner has the latest for us from the garage area on this news. Bob, what's going on now?
Well, Johnny, we just wanted to keep you up to date with what's going on. Like you said, right there, that's a porter power. It's a hydraulic porter power. And what they're doing is the team is actually trying to move the fender using that porter power. It was so significant still, the difference between the template and where that fender is supposed to be, that the team could not move it with a hammer alone. So what they did is they got this porter power out of the transporter, and right now they're trying to move some of the bars, the bracing for the fender, to move it up a little bit so that the points meet with NASCAR's approval on this template, which we all call the claw. So that's what's going on right now. As we said, Jeff Gordon's car has not passed tech. This is the resubmitting of Jeff Gordon's car here for the Sonoma race. It didn't pass the first time, and so far it hasn't passed, but it looks like it's about to be rolled up underneath that claw once again. So like I said, JR, we'll keep you updated.
Hey, Bob, you told us just a moment ago that NASCAR has been very clear that infractions dealing with the car of tomorrow will be dealt with more severely than with the current car. And we got that bulletin at Bristol last year that said if you mess with a certified part of the race car, it's a guaranteed 100 points and $100,000. But what about the body now not actually being one of the so-called certified parts of this race car?
A very good question, and that question was posed to the NASCAR spokesperson during that press conference just moments ago here at Infineon Raceway, and he said that every part, including the body, is considered a certified part on the COT. So that's what's very interesting about this. But the problem is that NASCAR mandates in the rule book that the claw meets certain points on the fender, on the hood, and so forth. Well, the team says it doesn't say anything about the areas between the points, and that seems to be one of those gray areas that NASCAR is dealing with here at Infineon here today. Now we'll go for some more fun to Rutledge.
Actually, okay, Bob, coming back here for now. We'll get back to Rutledge in just a moment. Thanks a lot, Bob, for that report, and we'll keep an eye on that as it evolves throughout the day. A lot of questions still left to be answered, and we will bring those answers to you throughout the day here on Speed. When we come back, a final word on this edition of NASCAR Live, so stick around, everybody. We're getting ready to see the Cup cars on the road course at Sonoma.
NASCAR Live is presented by Kawasaki. Let the good times roll.
Welcome back, everyone, to NASCAR Live, where the NASCAR Nextel Cup Series is getting ready to do battle with this 12-turn road course here at Sonoma. And somehow on this show, we got on the subject of style. I don't quite know how we did it, but in today's NASCAR Hot Pass, only on DirecTV report, we have two of the best heads of hair in the entire NASCAR business together. That's Rutledge Wood and Boris Said.
John, I not only found one Boris, I found two. I found Boris Jr. also. How excited, Boris, are you to be back?
Oh, really excited. I mean, I love watching racing, but I'd much rather be racing. So, I mean, I just feel really proud about the No Fear team, what we've been able to do so far, making 6 for 6, and got a lot of great sponsors this weekend with our Sobe No Fear and Dollar General and Rayleigh's food stores. But this is a nerve-wracking day. You know, I'll be glad when it's over. If we can just get in the show, I'll be really happy, and then we can just concentrate on how we can get our car to go fast enough to do good in the race.
And being from California, you've got so many of your fans here to represent you. I mean, is this one of the funnest ones for you?
I mean, they all are. I mean, anything. I mean, there's just as many crazy fans at Watkins Glen or Daytona. So, I mean, I'll race anywhere. I like them just as much. But, yeah, I mean, you're only an hour from home by plane, so it's a lot nicer after the race because you're home a lot quicker than flying for 6 hours.
Well, Boris has got the family here with him. Boris Jr., we're working on the air. Let's throw it to Bob. What do you say? Oh, that's perfect. Do that again. Bob?
Well, over here in the inspection area, Jeff Gordon's number 24 DuPont Chevrolet still going through that process. They just put what we call the egg crate actually on the front end of the car to measure the points on the nose, and there was still some sort of discrepancy on the left front fender. In fact, you saw the NASCAR officials talk to Jeff Mindering, the car chief for the 24, about those issues and so forth, but it was so close, and it might right now be where the 24 is going through and meeting all the NASCAR specs. Still very hard to tell right now, but this is a very long process for the COT, and right now the 24 car near the end of it, but a lot to talk about today about the Jeff Gordon car and that issue with the left front fender. But those cars, the 48 and the 24, resubmitted. The 48 has gone through, and right now still the 24 going through the tech process, Johnny.
Bob, thank you very much for the information. We appreciate it. And folks, we're getting ready for practice here. Log on to speedtv.com for the latest in information. And we will keep you up to date on the air all day long today on the situation involving the number 24, Jeff Gordon's car, the number 48 belonging to Jimmy Johnson. Now it's time to practice road course, right turns and left turns in Sonoma.
Thank you very much, John Roberts, at the Infineon Raceway in Sonoma, California. The cars roar to life as they head out for NASCAR Nextel Cup practice, but they are minus two notable exceptions. The 48 car of Jimmy Johnson, he's third in points. The 24 car of Jeff Gordon, the points leader, will not practice. Both of those cars have been parked by NASCAR for all of today's activities for an infraction this morning, an inspection. For more on that, our good friends Larry McReynolds and Jeff Hammond. And Larry, we need to talk about what actually happened and possibly the intent, and then we'll get into later in this show possible ramifications.
Well, when you look at the car tomorrow, especially coming to a place like Infineon, a road course, one of the challenges is getting the cars to turn. Anything you can do to create more front downforce is going to help that situation. Let's go back to our old car. We had a lot of liberty to work with front fender shape and width and things of that nature. You had one or two templates, a width measurement. From there on, you pretty much could work with anything about those front fenders you wanted to, and they would differ a lot from, say, Daytona and Talladega to a place like a road course where you wanted a lot of front downforce. One of the things the car tomorrow accomplishes, every front fender for every car with the exception of left and right is absolutely the same, and it's monitored by a grid of templates. When those two cars went through inspection this morning, the grid actually fit the car, but it was the work that was done between the templates that NASCAR discovered, hey, a lot of work has been done. Talking to John Darby, competition director for Nextel Cup, the intent to create more front downforce. I think NASCAR has made the statement for the last 6 months, we are not going to play with things about this car tomorrow.
And Jeff, let's recap briefly. As I mentioned a moment ago, the 24 and the 48 will not be able to practice today. They will not be able to qualify. They will start 41st and 42nd respectively, and then tomorrow NASCAR will have a meeting with those Hendrick Motorsports teams to discuss what they can do or not tomorrow.
Well, Steve, what we're trying to say here is that NASCAR sent out a memo to these teams back early on saying that the new car, the car tomorrow that we have here this weekend, you will not be allowed to work in these areas. You're not going to be able to do this like you did to the old car guys, and when you do, you will pay a price. And we've already saw that with Tony Ure Jr., crew chief right now for the 8 car. He on 6-week suspension for messing with the brackets at the back with the rear spoiler mounted to. Now, the area that Larry's talking about is you see him putting this long crate template on there. The area that he's talking about is right in the area where the number is, the headlight area, just in front of that. And the reason why we can't work in those areas is that NASCAR has said, look, we want it to leave it alone. This is not something you can do. You can make it and work inside these other areas, but you're not allowed to do this, guys. And when you do, basically what we're going to do, we're going to make you pay a price. And the key thing about this is that when this happens, we've already got precedent sets of the $100,000, 100 championship points, 6 weeks. Believe you me, it's probably going to be stiffer than that this time around, Steve. I think NASCAR is going to make a statement like none other and ever before. And unfortunately for a guy like Chad Knaus, who has already been in trouble with NASCAR in the past, it's going to come back to haunt him. For Steve Letarte, it'll be interesting to see what kind of a penalty he winds up. And on top of that, leading the points, guys, I'm not too sure this was a smart move.
Well, NASCAR is holding a press conference as we speak. For more on that, let's go to Marty Snyder.
Yeah, and actually, Steve, the press conference just wrapped up. Kind enough to join us, Vice President of Competition for NASCAR, Mr. Robin Pemberton. What exactly did you guys find wrong with the 28 and the 48 this morning?
Well, the body was out of the range of what we thought was acceptable through their template inspection this morning on both the 48 and 24.
And so what happens from now? Do they get to practice tomorrow? I understand they have to go through inspection once again today. Is that correct?
Well, they haven't completed their inspection for today yet. So as they continue, when those cars complete their inspection and get put in the garage, we'll make that decision this afternoon about tomorrow's activities.
So the crews will be allowed to work on their cars today then to get it legal?
Yeah, they should be done. I think the 48's gone through. They've probably got 1 or 2 more steps to go, and they should be done.
No matter what, though, they will have to start at the back of the field. You will let them race on Sunday?
Yes, they'll be able to race on Sunday.
Was it ever a consideration to send them home for the weekend?
No.
Why?
Because that's not what we do. It's not fair to the teams, not fair to the fans. But we'll get together Monday and Tuesday, as we always do, and discuss what further penalties might come of this.
Your spokesman, Rancy Poston, with the press conference earlier, he said the penalties will be severe because it's the car of tomorrow penalty. You set the precedent at 100 points, $100,000, and 6 races of suspension. Is that something along the lines that we'll see this time?
Well, as always, you know, we'll take this time. We won't react immediately, and we'll get together on Monday and Tuesday, and we'll discuss this, and we'll have something to put out then.
All right, as usual, we'll probably hear something on Tuesday, as he said. We'll let him run. He's got to go to a 12:30 meeting. Now, for the team side of things, let's go to Lindsay Czarniak.
Thanks, Marty. You talked about how they would have to start in the back of the field, and after talking to Gordon's crew, that's the part, of course, being here at Infineon that means the most to them, because they said tomorrow they'll get to practice in that race trim, but right now they're worried about their starting spot. I want to give you a look right now at the 24 car, because the crew has gone back through the Tech 9. They're trying to get that sticker. Right now they're working on the back wing, and Chad Knaus, crew chief for Jimmy Johnson, and obviously Steve Letarte, are in a closed-door meeting right now discussing how they're going to handle it and what their strategy becomes. I want to walk you up to the front of the car, because I was in the garage when they were waiting to hear what NASCAR was going to rule on this, and this is the area of the car, the fender, that they had been working on. They got it back to fix it as NASCAR wanted it, and then the guys were working furiously to get these decals back on so that they could run it again through Tech. So a very frustrating way to start this weekend for the 24 crew. They're just most concerned about starting in the back.
Huge story, Lindsay. Thank you very much. Also, Marty Snyder, thanks for the update with Robin Pemberton. And Larry McReynolds, Jeff Hammond, as we watch Martin Truex Jr., there could be some big, not only ramifications in terms of penalties, but as Lindsay touched on, if your crew chief is suspended, where's the depth come from? Jeff Hammond, you mentioned before we went on the air, Steve Letarte and Jeff Gordon have had tremendous success together this year. So a lot of things to consider.
A lot of things to consider right there. And again, we saw from a year ago, whenever Chad Knaus was kind of like in the doghouse after the incident at Daytona, you know, he had an opportunity there to allow, you know, a guy to step up and move into that position right there, and it wound up winning the Daytona 500. But a lot of these teams do not have the depth, you know, that a Hendrick Motorsports does. But the key thing right now is, Larry, is the chemistry these guys have is so important. And when you start taking that away, and I think most importantly with Steve Letarte and Jeff Gordon, this could, you know, affect their chances as far as making, not so much making the chase, but winning the championship. It just disrupts everything. Again, as we take a look at the 24 car, the front fender area, and Larry, you know, people say, why? Why do you do this? Why do you work in these areas? It's just trying to get that advantage. As good as Jeff Gordon is, if you can give him a little bit more, get a little more downforce, make those front tires grip a little bit more, it allows you to go around this road course a lot more, you know, efficiently, and you basically drive away from the field if you can do that. But they got in trouble for doing it.
Well, our current car, old car that we've raced here for the last 18 years, getting the car to turn in the middle of the corner has always been a challenge. We know that this car tomorrow does not have as much front downforce, and for the most part, more than likely, all the cars here would be fairly equal in downforce because of the way the front end is monitored. You and I both know, Jeff, that, and I think the car tomorrow is a different deal. We would bring things here as crew chiefs, maybe that were a little out of bounds because it's a road course, and NASCAR seem to be a little more lenient, but the message they're sending, whether we're at Daytona, Talladega, Martinsville, Bristol, or Infineon, we will not be lenient with this car tomorrow. And just one final point to put a period on this whole thing. The way the chase is structured, remember, these two guys, even if they lose 100 points, they're still going to stay in the top 12. They still have the most wins. And after this weekend, 10 races to go to the chase, they still would be seeded #1 and #2 based on their wins. They've already proven, and we don't want to speculate what the penalty is going to be. We'll know, as Robin Pemberton said on Tuesday. But they've already proven the past history of that operation. There's enough depth there. They probably will overcome this. Both teams will probably make the chase, and then things will move on.
Well, there's a lot to talk about in this practice. Tony Stewart, a former winner here on the road course at Infineon.
And he's right now the fastest.
Yeah, he is the fastest. Had a little scary moment here right off the race course. And guys, if I've heard a crew chief say it once, I've heard him say it 100 times. The key here is staying on the racetrack.
I've said for years, my philosophy the last 6 years as a broadcaster and for a number of years as a crew chief, go to a road course, whether it's Infineon or Watkins Glen, stay on the racetrack, pointed in the right direction, do not have a mechanical failure. Obviously, mechanical attrition can be high here with gears, transmissions, brakes, and so on, and make good pit calls, which we'll talk a lot about this weekend. Trust me, you can come out of here with a good top 5, good top 10 finish.
As we go to commercial break, consider this in regards to Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. They start 41st and 42nd. The deepest a race has ever been won from here. 13th, Davey Allison. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Nextel Cup practice from Infineon Raceway is brought to you by Best Buy. Thousands of possibilities. Get yours. And by Mobil 1, the official motor oil of NASCAR. Robbie Gordon, a former winner here on the twisting, turning road course, is fastest in this practice. And, gentlemen, that's not a surprise.
Not at all. I mean, and Jeff, we've talked about this every year. If Robbie Gordon will go back to that philosophy I talked about, you know, good pit strategy, stay on the road course, stay on the road, no mechanical woes, there's no question he can be a contender on Sunday.
He can be a contender. And, Larry, I know that in talking to him, he has had this place circled on his calendar for quite a while because he knew that he could come out here, felt like with this new COT car that he could be a factor, because when it comes to road course racing, I mean, he's been able, he makes a big slide right down there through the S's with that 7 car right now, trying to get everything worked out. But he's definitely one of the fastest guys week in and week out, or race in and race out when you come to the road courses here, as well as Watkins Glen.
A few moments ago, we saw Tony Stewart with a off-track excursion. He's a 2-time winner here at Infineon Raceway. Let's go to Marty Snyder.
Well, and see, that off-track excursion did not hurt Stewart's car in the least. In fact, he says he's very happy with the race car. You'll hear a lot of people early in this session say they are in race trim. They may switch to qualifying trim a little bit later. Completely race trim for Tony Stewart right now in this 20 car. And he said he's very happy. A little bit of front-end changes right here to make it a little bit better in the right-handers, he says. But other than that, Stewart feels like he has a very fast race car. And he's already found that limit. Stay on the black stuff, and he'll be okay, guys.
He's already exceeded that right here, Marty.
Right.
But I think the key thing is when you get to a road course, I know with a lot of drivers, and I used to laugh when Dick Trickle used to, has driven for me on occasion. He would always say, Jeff, just don't worry about the car. It's driver orientation. When you get to a place like Infineon, you've got to give a driver an opportunity to kind of get reacclimated, find his way around the racetrack, you might say, because this is something they don't see week in and week out. And a lot of times you don't want to push or make a lot of changes based off of that first run until your driver gets a little bit more, I guess you might say, tuned up.
Speaking of driver orientation, Brandon Ashe in the 02 car. He's driving a Dodge Avenger here.
And Steve, qualifying a little bit later on here on speed, it's going to be very, very interesting. A big field of cars here. 52 cars are here, so that means 17 cars going after those 8 positions. We do know that Terry Labonte, who's driving the 55 car for Michael Waltrip this week, he will be one of those 8. So essentially 16 cars going after 7 positions.
There's a look at some of the road course aces or ringers who are here. P.J. Jones in the 00 for David Rudiman. Butch Leitzinger in the 23 car. That essentially is a Bill Davis car. So Jeremy Mayfield didn't even make the trip out here. Brian Semo, Klaus Groff in for Mike Bliss in the 49. Michael Waltrip has gotten out of his car, and the 41 of Reed Sorensen has spun. So, again, Larry, as you said, 52 cars with a big complement of road race ringers.
And what's interesting when you look at that list, every one of those drivers and teams are go or go homers, with the exception of the 96 car, Hall of Fame Racing. And I think Bill Saunders, Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman, they took a look at the fact of how tough the competition's getting here. They're sitting there 27th in owner points. They need a couple of good runs to build some cushion. They felt like, let's bring a guy like Ron Fellows here. Let's race him here in Watkins Glen, and that will make it a little easier maybe for Tony Raines going to some of these other races where we're not flirting with falling outside the top 35.
Well, and another thing, too, let's remember back a year ago, who was in that 96 car and almost won this race? Driving for Hall of Fame Racing?
That guy right there.
Right there, Terry Labonte, now in the 55 car. So that's a car that is very capable of winning. And right now, I think a great choice right now when we look at the 55 car by Michael Waltrip Racing and bringing a guy and putting him in that car that could give them an opportunity to not only win this race, but definitely you make it in because of his past champions status, but I think more importantly because of his ability to get around this racetrack.
Terry Labonte just 50th fastest early here in practice. Robbie Gordon is the quickest, followed by Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, and Jamie McMurray. Moments ago, the scene as Jeff Gordon heads upstairs to attend a meeting with NASCAR, following and included in that entourage. Shortly, you'll see Chad Knaus, the crew chief for Jimmy Johnson, Steve Letarte, who was Jeff Gordon's crew chief. By the way, you see Jeff accepting congratulations. He and his wife, Ingrid, proud parents this week. Ella Sophia, 7 pounds, 1 ounce, born earlier this week. So Jeff Gordon is here on at the racetrack, and we'll continue to follow this story all day long here on Speed. Guys, Jamie McMurray, perhaps not noted as a road racer, but 5th fastest here in practice. He actually does pretty well on these places.
Sat on the outside of the front row a year ago in qualifying, actually has a 2nd place finish. Not surprised to see Jamie Mack up there in the top 5 right now as he's run about 5 laps in his practice session. I want to go back to something Marty Schneider was talking about. A lot of these teams in race trim. I will say if there's one place where race trim and qualifying trim doesn't differ that much, other than the fact of air pressure, fresh tires, maybe a little bit of work with the shocks. For the most part, your race package and your qualifying package, I've said all along, if there is 2 races that makes perfect sense for impound races, it would be the 2 road courses because race trim and qualifying trim is pretty close.
Amen, brother. When it comes to some of the changes that you go through some of the other different racetracks, again, what you show up with here is what you've got. I mean, we'll tweak a little bit for the majority of things. If the car is working like it needs to, you don't change very much at all.
Just saw Matt Kenseth in the 17. He has never scored a top 10 finish here at Infineon. Casey Kane in the 9 car, 3 starts. His best finish, 31st.
And you know, we've been with the car tomorrow to 6 races. And Dover was the fastest. I think we went there with a lot of unknowns going there to the fastest racetrack we would race it at this year with the exception of Talladega. But I think here, this was the wild card. Because one thing about this car tomorrow, and Steve, you heard Elliott Sadler when he said it. He said the biggest difference between driving our old current car versus this car tomorrow is like maybe getting out of your Corvette and climbing in your SUV. The center of gravity is much higher in this car, and I think that's one of the things that these teams were heavily anticipating is the transitioning from turning to the right, turning to the left with that higher CG. Almost makes the car feel like it wants to tip over, I think.
That's exactly how Elliott's put it to me, Larry Mack. He said it's like you get in an SUV and you go around a corner and it feels like the top is rolling over on you. That's how the car of tomorrow feels to these guys, as opposed to what they're used to driving over the past several years.
And the key thing right now, talking to some of the teams that they've told me that they've done a little different, is that they've actually increased the anti-roll bar not only in the front, but in the rear of the car to try to dissipate some of that. Go with a softer spring setup and use the rear roll bar to kind of allow the car to work as far as forward bite's concerned, but to keep the car kind of squatted down to the racetrack and not letting it roll around a lot like what Larry's talking about. It is definitely a challenge with this car to get the car where it's going to be driver friendly and feeling comfortable.
Well, Jeff, Robbie Gordon's still the fastest here in practice on this road course in the Sonoma Valley. Casey Kane is 3rd quickest. Tony Stewart right in the middle. He's 2nd.
7th is Gene
Sunday on Speed, don't miss the Speed Report. Go beyond the highlights and beyond the stats. Get the why with the Speed Report Sunday, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, only on Speed. Kurt Busch in the 2-car, now up to second fastest, right behind Robbie Gordon. Kurt Busch, the pole sitter here a year ago. 5 consecutive starts here at Infineon of 6th or better.
Has a new crew chief here this weekend. Pat Tryson moved over from Roush Racing, taking over the crew chief duties. Now, Kurt and Pat both have been at Roush Racing. They actually never worked together, but they were both there.
Best finish of 3rd for Kurt Busch here. Let's go to Marty.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. currently 6th on the speed chart, Steve. And a couple things Larry Mack and Jeff I think you guys would find interesting. Number one, they tested about 3 or 4 weeks ago at VIR up in Virginia. And Jr. says he doesn't want anything on the car today that was not put on during the test. He only wants to be familiar with chassis components they may put on the car or maybe they've tried before. But the interesting thing he says, Larry Mack and Jeff, he says the car is just rolling over on the left front. There's not strong enough springs in the front of the car, he feels like. And it really hurts him in turn 10, and Junior thinks that is the most important part of the track because that's where he gets all his speed going down into turn 11 so he can make passes there. So they're making some front end changes to the car, some shock changes, trying to get that front a little bit more sturdy, if you will, to give Junior a little bit better feel.
And Marty, that makes a lot of sense as far as if they went to VIR, car was good there for him. What he's basically told him is that don't change anything because I want to come here and know that what I've got is something I've already been in. But this racetrack has probably got some different characteristics of VIR and some of the, as far as the terrain, as far as the elevation changes, coming down that through those S's and then going into turn 10. It is one of the fastest parts of the racetrack. You really are very dependent upon the way the front end sits to get through that part, Larry. And if you are a little bit soft on springs, you need to stiffen up a little bit. That may be all it needs.
Or you mentioned it a while ago, maybe a little bigger front anti-roll bar or sway bar.
Just a little bit.
Boris said in that 60 car, one of the premier road racers in the world. Let's take a look at what happened to him just moments ago. You know, again, guys, you're carrying an awful lot of speed with elevation changes.
Hello.
Roof flap deploys.
Easy, easy.
A lot of runoff room here.
Yeah.
Now, Boris is one of those guys we saw on the list a while ago, go or go home. And I was talking to his crew this morning, Frank Stoddard. Boris said he knows this afternoon he can probably go out there, fresh tires, and lay down a lap good enough to sit on the pole. Not what they need to do. When you're trying to get one of those positions, because there's such a fine line here between underdriving and overdriving. You do either of those, and you're one of the go or go homers, you will load up and go to the house.
And Larry, we've talked about this before. As you see him come up the top of the hill, and once again, the car a little bit on the loose side as he tops, I guess that's turn 2 up there, coming across over here. But the key thing is, if he was to mess up entering turn 1 or turn 2 after he takes the green, he could mess up his entire lap. He can get all the way down into turn 11 and do the same thing, and he could kill his lap.
And unlike everywhere else we go, road courses, it's 1 lap qualifying. You got 1 shot to get it right.
No fear. Don't believe me? Look at the side of his car.
That's a lot of pressure. 1 lap, make it count. And as Larry said, 52 cars here today. Of course, only 50 will take time. Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon have been parked for the entire day. In case you missed it at the top of the show, their teams will have a meeting with NASCAR this morning where NASCAR will let them know what their activities will entail tomorrow, if any.
I just can't see NASCAR not letting them at least do one of those practice sessions. If nothing else, even though these teams, as you heard Marty and Lindsay, they've been talking about all the testing these teams have done at Virginia International Raceway, Kershaw, Road Atlanta. If nothing else, a safety standpoint, just to make sure you get some laps on the racetrack.
But Larry, they could go to the extent of saying, okay, yeah, for safety reasons, we're going to let you have 5 laps of practice. That could be something that could be, once again, trying to make that point that this is, and you, as we were talking about the COT car, I got to thinking, this is not really your car. This is NASCAR's car. Don't mess with NASCAR's car. That's what they've been telling all these teams. This is one we're letting you work with, but it is our car. You will not deviate from what we have given you to work with.
Jeff Boris said has posted the 14th fastest time. Robbie Gordon still the quickest. We go back to Lindsay.
Denny Hamlin is sitting inside his car as his crew works on it. They said that they're having motor issues, possibly a miss in the engine. And you see Denny is crawling out of the car right there. We're told he wasn't extremely happy with it, but the whole key here is that Denny's only on his second visit here to the track, so they want to make sure that he feels comfortable going around.
But I couldn't think of a better place to bring Denny Hamlin. Just remember, he likes specialty racetracks. He loves Pocono. He won the road course race at Mexico last year, finished second this year, in his first trip here, Lindsey was talking about, in a backup car after crashing before qualifying, he came back to finish 12th.
And Larry, just watching these guys, it looks like they're working maybe on possibly a fuel issue, because I saw the guys working around where would be the pump that they like to run to pump the fuel, which they use a mechanical pump on this new style of car up to the engine. So it looks like they maybe have a fuel pickup problem.
Robbie Gordon still the quickest here at the Infineon Raceway in the Sonoma Valley. Jeff Burton looking under his car. We'll have more updates right after this. Martin Truex Jr. coming of age as a NASCAR Nextel Cup driver. His last 3 races, a worse finish of 3rd at Pocono. He got his first win at Dover. And boys, we were talking during commercial, he won a road course race in Mexico City in the Busch Series.
The inaugural race down there back in 2005. But by those finishes, he's now 10th in Nextel Cup points. Before those 3 races, he was 20th. So that just goes to show you, good solid runs, it'll shoot you up in a hurry.
Confidence, right, Jeff Hammond?
You got to have it. And you see these guys right now, they look like a totally different race team. In the past, we knew this guy had a lot of talent, but right now, he is definitely showing it week in and week out. They unload, they're fast off the truck, they look great in practice, and when it comes time to go racing, they're able to kind of like put a period on everything in the end. First, the second, the third, last 3 races. You don't get much better than that, Steve.
You know, we were talking, I think, at the top of the show, strategy. And I know it's qualifying day, but as we heard Marty talk about, a lot of these guys are in race trim. Let me tell you what a lot of people are already working on. This is a 110-lap race. We've always had our 22-gallon fuel cells here for the 110-lap race. You could do it in 2 pit stops. And trust me, the way you win this race, spend the least amount of time on pit road. You could run about 36 or 37 laps 3 times. Pit stop in between each of those segments. But remember now, with the 19-gallon cell,
had a lot of grip for half a lap right there, and then it went away, so we're in the right direction. Need to look at our air pressure.
And what it almost works out is about 1.5 laps per gallon. So we have 3 less gallons, that's 4.5 less laps. So now these guys can only run about 33 laps. So they're going to be about 8 to 10 laps short of being able to do it on 2 stops. This is something they'll be working on today and tomorrow.
And a lot of teams, though, are still working really hard, Larry, from what they're telling me, trying to squeeze all the fuel miles they possibly can out of that. I've heard some of the teams even talking about cutting back some of their fuel pressure as low as possible and then leaning the car out at the same time. So it's going to be interesting to see how it kind of comes into play as we watch Tony Stewart, who is still currently 3rd on the board. And with Jeff and Jimmy having their problems, guys, would this not clearly, I think, move Tony Stewart to the top of the board as far as the guy that you got to beat here? Because if he has a good qualifying effort, he should be, you know, a tough competitor come Sunday.
2-time winner here.
Let's follow him around this racetrack and talk about what he's doing right now. He's going between turn 2 and 3 here. He's in 2nd gear. He's going to stay in 2nd gear up the hill to what we call turn 3A. He's going to stay in 2nd gear. He'll be against the rev limiter right there. He'll just kind of roll out, drive through it. We're going through turn 4 now, down the chute. He will be up against the rev limiter again there. And right here, he's going to go all the way down to 1st gear in turn 7. Now he's going to make this hard right-hander back to a left-hander, grabbing 2nd, grabbing 3rd gear. Now he's in the S's. He's going to grab high gear right here. This is through basically 8 AA and turn 9. This is coming through the S's, one of the fastest parts of the racetrack. Now he's going to come down into what we call turn 10, and he may grab 3rd gear right there as he heads down to turn 11. All the way down here, the slowest part of the racetrack, he's going to go all the way to 1st gear. This is where you try to outbrake people getting in this corner and try to win the drag race up. Now he's going to come out of 11. You see him sliding around there. He's going to grab 2nd, back to 3rd, back to high gear across the start-finish line, and head back up the hill through turn 1. So you shift about 14 to 16 times a lap here, depending on the pace and the tires you have.
They're like Larry Mack. They're busy.
I'm tired.
More practice from Sonoma after this here on Speed. 12th, Speed presents Fine Tune from 0 to 360 in 8 days. Watch as actor, model, and car enthusiast Tyson Beckford and award-winning import car designer Lucky J fine-tune a car from bumper to bumper in just 8 days. July 12th, 9 Eastern, here on Speed. It's Kyle Petty in the 45 car, and Larry Mack, you'll be working with him Sunday on TNT. He'll be broadcasting for the race car.
Be playing a little different role. You know, he's going to go out this afternoon and qualify this car. The only race during these 6 TNT races that he will be on the racetrack. But looking forward to doing something a little different with Kyle on Sunday with being a broadcaster and in the race car.
Well, while we got the Kyle Petty car on there, would you believe, guys, that Dodge has never won here at Infineon? And as a matter of fact, the last road course victory that Dodge was able to get was way back at Riverside in 1977, and Kyle's daddy, Richard, was the one that scored the win for him.
At Riverside.
At Riverside.
It looked like what Kyle did there, he almost, you know, I think one thing you want to do at a road course, I think whether you're getting ready to race or qualify, unless you're wanting to evaluate how you stack up against the competition, is you don't want an aggravation. You don't want someone in your rearview mirror aggravating you because you're trying to focus on hitting your marks. Looked like to me what Kyle did there. The 18 car, J.J. Yaley ran up on him. It's like, you know what? Just go on. I'm trying to focus on my race car right now. I want to just run my deal here. And he's going to come in to make some adjustments on this 45 car now.
As we watch Dale Jr. in that number 8 Chevrolet, we still don't know if Budweiser's going with him to Hendrick Motorsports. We don't know who his crew chief is going to be. We don't know what number he's going to be. We know that he's going to Hendrick Motorsports.
Well, as we take a look at Dale Jr. and you talk about Hendrick Motorsports, I mean, you think about all the good things that's been happening for Dale Jr. and Hendrick Motorsports here as far as, you know, winning. We got a little trouble with Klaus Groff right there in the 49 car. The side window, or the upper window, I should say, has come out of the 49 car, so he's going to bring it back in. And he needs to do that pretty quickly before he winds up losing it.
Getting ready to come out. Left side window. Come on down pit road.
And that thing is normally on like aero cam locks that you take a screwdriver, and evidently they must have had it out for some reason before this run here, and they didn't have it quite fastened back in.
Yeah, somebody's going to be pointing fingers or wanting to know what happened here. All of a sudden you see it pop out.
And of course, what's holding it still on there is those hoses that will go to different things like the rear end cooler, the transmission cooler, maybe even some cooling hoses for the driver himself.
Mike Bliss has been at the wheel of that number 49 car, but road racer Klaus Groff from Germany in the car this weekend, hoping to make the show.
But getting back to the Dale Jr. and the Hendrick situation, but they've had so much stuff going positive for them, and all this time, and to have what they had happen here today. I mean, what about, you know, something that really kind of takes it, derails your momentum, you might say. You know, you get Dale Earnhardt Jr., you've been winning, you're leading the points, everything's so positive as far as Hendrick's concerned, and then we have this problem that they've got today. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it.
This team is proof, though, you can overcome a 100-point deficit, because remember the 100-point penalty from Darlington? He has now moved back into the top 12 in points after some good runs.
Tony Gibson doing a nice job of filling in as interim crew chief for Tony Uri Jr. Robbie Gordon still atop the leaderboard. More practice from Infineon right after this. Jeff Gordon in street clothes. That's because NASCAR has parked the number 24 that Jeff Gordon drives and the number 48 of Jimmy Johnson for some infractions during inspection this morning. Let's go down into the garage and Lindsay Zarniak.
Doug Ducart is the Vice President of Competition for Hendrick Motorsports, and he's with me now. Doug, what is Hendrick's response to these actions that we're taking?
Well, this morning we presented our cars for inspection, and NASCAR found that our fenders were outside their comfort level in between templates on our front fenders. We felt we had worked in that area to try to increase front downforce. I think Larry had talked about that. We felt like we could work in between those templates, but obviously that was an incorrect assumption, and we found that out today, obviously. And I think everyone understands more today than we knew yesterday. And we worked to fix the cars. We presented those back to NASCAR. Our understanding is that they're okay, the way we fixed them. And they're going to decide tomorrow when and if we get our sticker.
So to clarify, you do not know for sure that you will be able to practice tomorrow?
We have not been told that yet, no.
How does this impact you for the rest of this race weekend and the teams, of course, talking about Jimmy and Jeff?
Well, obviously track time's important. It's the first Impala race for us with the COT, and so losing that track time is very difficult. Obviously, Jeff's one of the best road racers that ever sat in one of these, and we've did a lot of testing and VAR to prepare for this. So we'll have to lean on our teammates, what they learned today, and hopefully we'll get on track tomorrow and be able to learn some for the race tomorrow.
Doug, as a team, do you feel like this is fair?
Well, I don't, we understand that NASCAR is being very serious about these Impala, the car tomorrow races, and we misunderstood what we felt we could do. I feel like our cars have been to the NASCAR Tech Center 5 times since we won the first 5 COT races. They've been gone over with a fine-tooth comb after every win. We work with NASCAR to help develop processes and dimensions on these cars. So, we went forward and we were incorrect. And so we understand NASCAR felt like we were outside of the box for them, and they've come with these ramifications. So I don't say that it's unfair. We're just coming to an understanding with them on what we can and can't do on these cars, and we're moving forward from there.
Doug Ducard with Hendrick Motorsports. Now for driver reaction, we go to Marty.
Well, Lindsay, the press conference just wrapped up with Jeff Gordon and all the crew chiefs involved, as well as Doug was in the press conference as well. And the drivers are here with their cars and with their teams for support, trying to show them that they are here for them. Jeff Gordon said, I will likely stay through qualifying today. I have an appearance at the racetrack tonight, so he plans on being here all day long. In fact, you see Jimmy hanging out with Jeff Gordon's crew right now. Jeff, in fact, in his race car right now, in his street clothes, making sure the seat works fine for him for Sunday, and they plan to stick this out. Jeff said he's taking a positive look at this. He said, you know what, it's no different than if I went out there and tried to qualify, ran off the road course, and wound up qualifying 41st for Sunday's race. He said, to me, it's really no different. We'll get practice tomorrow, we hope, as long as NASCAR allows us, and he's going to be here to support his team for right now. They are working on both primary cars, and they will represent these primary cars, not backup cars, for inspection here in about an hour or so before qualifying. They have to have these cars go through inspection and be passed before they are considered to be allowed to practice tomorrow. Steve?
Yeah, good points, Marty. Jeff, I want to get to you. Listening to Doug Ducard, am I correct in assuming he said we were trying to work in between the templates, meaning the area of the sheet metal in between two of what you guys call the hard spots?
Well, as you take a look right there, you see the outside of the fender template that wraps around the front of the fender. And the thing is right now that we're looking at, and unfortunately our telestrator is not really working like it needs to, but what they're trying to do and what they're trying to tell you is that they felt like that they could work in those areas. There you go. That's the area that they're talking about, that's in between the template area, and they can make that shape change and make more aero downforce. So that's what they were working on, and they felt like that was a legal area, kind of like the gray areas we like to allude to. Now, the one thing I picked up off of in this conversation, and it's got to be promising for Hendrick, is number one, NASCAR did not confiscate their cars. They allowed them to work on them, make repairs to them, because in the past, when they don't like something, they'll confiscate the part, and they have confiscated cars in the past, like with Tony Stewart one time. So them allowing them to repair the cars is a plus in their favor. Having that kind of discussion about, well, maybe we had a misunderstanding of what areas we can work into is also going to, I think, help their cause and have as far as the argument is concerned. But the fact that the 5 and the 25 were not like the rest of the cars at Hendrick Motorsports, that may be confusing for a lot of the folks at home. That's why was Jeff and Jimmy one way, Casey Mears, Kyle Busch's car is another. So this is something for NASCAR to settle.
One quick point, just looking at these two garage areas at 24 and 48, one thing that I do like is, yeah, there's concern, but you know what? They're still laid back. They're kind of relaxed. You know what? It's happened. It's like the weather. We can't go back and change it now. Let's just get our cars prepared for hopefully what will be 2 practices tomorrow. But I need to make sure we make this point. And I've tried to make this point for the last 6 to 8 months. Why the car tomorrow? There are a lot of agendas, but there's 3 major ones. One is a safer car, which everyone's excited about. The other is to have maybe cars that are closer in competition. That's the reason we have the wing, we have the splitter. It wasn't that someone at NASCAR just woke up one morning and said, let's put a wing on the back of the car. It's supposed to help the aero part of the race cars be closer. But I think the biggest thing that the owners were telling NASCAR, if you're going to make us build a brand new race car, let's build a car that we will not have to have so many. And I am so impressed. About half of these 52 cars that are here are cars that these guys raced at Phoenix, at Bristol, at Martinsville. That was one of the big agendas along of a safer car of the car tomorrow. You start working in between the templates, you lose all that.
Boris said sat on the pole here in 2003. Right now, he is 9th quickest. I tell you, you watch different guys drive road courses, and Boris, some guys are smooth, some guys are braking, you know.
What does he like to say about when he drives?
That he's spectacular, that he's like a Doberman with a grenade.
That's exactly right.
He attacks it. Robbie Gordon still has the quickest time. Ward Burton snuck up in there in the top 5. We'll be right back to Sonoma after this here on Speed. Practice continues here in Sonoma, California. Another road racing ace. Ron Fellows aboard that number 96. He bumps Tony Raines out of that car here and then again at Watkins Glen. And Ron Fellows has won on a road course in NASCAR competition, not here in Sonoma, but he's won 3 or 4 races at Watkins Glen.
And he finished 6th in the 24-hour Le Mans last week. I mean, road race ace, that still does not tell the full story of this man right here.
Yeah, but those guys choosing to put him in this race car, I think, again, excellent choice. He's 10th quickest right at the moment. But more importantly, Steve, a lot like Boris said, normally when these guys show up, they're trying to kind of like cover for a guy, trying to get a team into this race who's on the outside looking in. This time he comes to Sonoma with this 96 car being locked into the points. So basically, he can go out there and let the rough side drag. He can have at it, hammer and tong just as hard as he wants to. He can try to sit this car on the pole, and if that happens, you better watch out. He could be a force to reckon with.
Let's check in with Marty.
Well, guys, Jeff Burton's in the garage area, and he's having one of those frustrating days. Larry Mack and Jeff, I'm sure you've had these as a crew chief, where the car's very fast. They're 6th fastest on the speed chart. They have not changed tires the whole time. In fact, they've made the car better throughout the session. His fast lap was on older tires, but he's having brake problems. He said he's about 80% pedal before the brakes show up at all. And then someone reported that something came out from underneath the car, like something in the brake system might have broken. They've already bled the brakes one time. They're working specifically on the front brakes right now, and Scott Miller is very frustrated because he knows he has a very good race car. They just got to get this brake issue figured out, and how they tune around that as well is also an issue for qualifying.
And guys, what they're trying to say is they look like they're changing the front pads and everything. We take a look at his teammate Kevin Harvick, number 29 car, out on the course. But what he's saying is when he puts the brakes on, Larry, he's pushing all he can, and the car's not slowing down effectively. And that's not a good feeling, and particularly here. You can overshoot the corner, and the next thing you know, you'll be off the course or in one of these safer barriers.
Well, in brakes, they've always been a big issue here. I mean, you watch as these cars go into the slower corners, like back down at turn 11, the nose just dives down, and I think we have seen where these cars tomorrow, maybe not the cooling process anymore, but the fact that these cars, you end up using a little more brake, they're harder to stop. Right now, Kevin Harvick in his 29 car is sitting there 16th quickest. He's run 6 laps in this practice session.
Guys, I remember one of the first times I ever remember the name Kevin Harvick. He ran the Winston West cars out here, racing here before, and he was just, I mean, he was unbelievably fast in those Camaros that they raced out here. And Kevin, I'm sure, is very at home at this racetrack.
And he did win the last time we were at a road course. He won at Watkins Glen last August.
Let's go back to Lindsay.
Well, you can see that Robbie Gordon's team is swapping him over to qualifying trim. Robbie actually just told me every blind squirrel actually finds a nut sometimes, so that pretty much sums up how he's feeling, and he's right here with me now. Robbie, you said every blind squirrel finds a nut. How are you feeling? Because obviously you're fastest right now in practice.
We've put an awful lot of time into our road race program. I try to tell people how much time we put into it, just building cars, and you know, what was it, Easter weekend, we came down the shop and did the front end on this car, and it just, we knew we'd have a good race car when we got here, provided that we optimized every piece of it, and that's what we've done. We've been in about I'm going to call it a halfway qualifying trim, tried 2 completely different shock and spring packages, and now we're going to go ahead and put it in qualifying trim and see what kind of lap we can run.
You've only won here once, but like you were telling me earlier, you've done well here several times. Do you feel like this time can be different for you?
Yeah, we've been in position to win it. The competition level in Nextel Cup is just so competitive. You got to make the most out of it. You got to make sure you don't make any mistakes. And right now we unloaded with a fast race car, but there's a long race still ahead of us. We still got to qualify. Got a lot of practice sessions. We've got 2 of these things. Got another one in the trailer, plugged in, warm, ready right now to run. So we've been working hard on our program, trying to get up to the level where we compete with Hendricks and DEI and the rest of them.
Robbie Gordon, fastest in practice. Larry?
And I think halfway qualifying trim, as we see Dave Blaney, he's been off the racetrack. No harm, no foul in his 22 car. Halfway qualifying trim almost supports what I was saying a while ago. Let's watch Dave Blaney here, and then we'll get back to this. This is coming up out of turn 1, headed down toward turn 2. And just got him way too hot. You could see the entrance speed, and we jumped on the brakes. That's when the car got loose. But again, great news is plenty of runoff.
And he did something we're going to hear a lot about. Looked like the car wheel hopped on him and slid it off of there.
Before it even slid a mark, so.
All right, but just real quick, the halfway qualifying trim, I talked about it a while ago. There's not that much difference in the setup of qualifying and race trim. What these guys will do now, they'll put fresh tires on Robbie Gordon's car. They'll work with the air pressure. They'll maybe adjust the shocks a little bit. They'll put tape on the nose, but the biggest adjustment, that cat behind the wheel, he'll get in qualifying mode, both hands and feet up on that wheel, trying to hit his mark every corner of the whole racetrack.
As Sterling Marlin likes to call it, bonsai lap.
And he's going to be busy.
That's right. Busy.
Well, Robbie Gordon's still the quickest when he runs that bonsai lap. We'll see how much faster he gets. Hey, look at JPM, Juan Pablo, second quick. Hey, race day fans, we're looking for photos. Show us your colors of speed for a chance to see yourself on race day. We'll select the best photo each week and show it on air. It's all part of My Race Day. Upload your photos to speedtv.com. Keyword My Race Day now.
Cousin Carl just overdrove a corner there, but he didn't overdrive no corners last week.
Motors by Jimmy Johnson and breaks a winless streak that went back to Texas November of 2005. And the customary trademark backflip.
Sticks it.
And Tom Giacchi gets a partial shave, not a full shave. That's going to happen on the trackside.
That's right.
Could you not see the relief on that man's face?
Well, Carl said it best. He said, women, when you walk through a Walmart, women would pull their children out of the way. They were afraid of him as he walked down the aisle. Tom Giacchi is a longtime friend of Carl's from Missouri.
Showed a lot of confidence in his driver out there making that statement when he did it. But speaking about confidence, look who's at the top of the list right now. Robbie Gordon, Juan Pablo Montoya, and Ward Burton.
Hey, Ricky Rudd, a two-time winner here also. Kurt Busch in the 2 cars got a good record here at Infineon Raceway in Sonoma, California. Sat on the pole here, finished 5th a year ago, led 29 laps on the afternoon.
He actually swept both poles last year at Infineon and Watkins Glen, so definitely was on his mark, but had a lot of other issues in the race. Had that pit road entrance situation at Watkins Glen, maybe cost him the win there, but always on his mark, whether it's qualifying or race trim here at a road course.
Marty, Kurt has 3 top 5 finishes here.
Yeah, that's half of his races here at Infineon Raceway. And Larry Mack, you mentioned that race. Kurt's still frustrated by that race at the Glen last year. Had probably the best car, couldn't show it in the end. Have a pretty good car today, as you guys mentioned earlier. First week with new crew chief Pat Trison. 4th on the board just now, and yes, they are on a qualifying run. Brand new tires and then qualifying trim. Kurt's very happy with the car. He says the car is a little bit too loose for him, and it just doesn't stop. You know, it slides, and that slide never quite quits for Kurt. A little bit loose in the right-handers, but otherwise very happy with his 2 car right now.
Well, Marty, he's going to be more than happy than that, because we just watched his teammate Ryan Newman take a big slide at the top of the hill of turn 1. Right now, Kurt is number 1 as far as being fast on the racetrack. Good effort right now by that 2 car.
He's going sideways right there.
And Kurt picked up 3/4 of a second from his best practice. Not unusual when you get in qualifying mode where you're working to hit those marks every corner on fresh tires. We'll see guys even pick up over a second once they get ready to qualify.
And I think we heard Brian Newman say he was coming in. He finished second here a year ago. There's Ryan after starting fourth.
Well, he's got about 11 laps, I think, on this set of tires right here. But a minute ago, the car definitely got away from him. I don't think he was on a qualifying run like his teammate.
Right now, Ryan's sitting 15th in the Nextel Cup points. Had those misfortunes at Michigan early in the race last week with a flat tire. 75 points out of 12th with 11 races to go to the chase, including this weekend.
Well, Juan Pablo Montoya won the Busch Series race in Mexico City on a road course. Lindsay, what's going on with JPM right now?
They're getting ready to get him back out on the track, and they just, that last run they took was the first qualifying run they had for Juan Pablo. He says the car feels really, really good. Obviously, it's second quick right now. They did put on 4 brand new tires, but, you know, to get Juan ready for this race, they tested down at VIR, but they also took him to Kershaw in South Carolina. So basically the feeling here, you know, talking to even other drivers in the garage, that it's, if Juan Pablo has a chance to win a Nextel Cup race, this is going to be it.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Juan Pablo, 4th fastest right now behind Kurt Busch, Robbie Gordon, and Elliott Sadler's jumped up into the 3rd spot.
See Jeff Burton in the 31 car back out there. He's right now, he's 5th quickest, but we heard the report a while ago, one of the biggest things they're working on with about 25 minutes to go in this practice, the brake issues, that the car was not slowing down when he applied the pedal. I'm sure that's the biggest thing they're trying to overcome here before qualifying during the last minutes of this practice.
And Larry, as you were talking, I was watching the timing and scoring monitor, and it was changing by the second as teams are making those bonsai runs.
Yeah, I think everybody, as Lindsay and Marty talked about, a lot of the guys that are locked in the show in the top 35 ran a good part of this practice in race trim. We see this every week, though. Now everybody's kicking it up, making those practice qualifying runs, and I think we'll see it continue to change all the way to the end of this practice session.
This practice slated for an hour and a half.
Figure it out myself.
Qualifying will be just a little bit later on here on Speed. Denny Hamlin in the 11. And, you know, Larry, Jeff, what surprises me is what you touched on, Larry, is the fact that he seems to excel on courses that have a high degree of difficulty. Pocono, 2 wins there a year ago. Phoenix is a flat, fast track. He was good there, and he's good on the road courses.
And I'm not even sure, Jeff, that Denny Hamlin has a good, solid explanation for that.
Yes, he does. Go ask him. It's video games. I'm good at video games. Now, this kid here he's got a feel like none other. I mean, again, Larry, you've worked with some guys like a Davey Allison, and they still got some kind of issue there with his race car because he's pulled off to the side of the course and seemed like he's going extremely slow, trying to give some other guys some clearing.
Real quick, Jeff, you see that left front tire, how much that tire is leaned in? That's one of the things that the crew chiefs really have to work on here because of turning left, turning right. What that's considered is negative camber. And negative camber with that tire really leaned in really helps the car turn when you're going to the right like he is right now. But again, road course racing, driving-wise and setup-wise, is a lot about compromises, but that's something that will help that 11 car really turn.
Now I know what he was doing. He pulled over to the side right there. He looks like he's maybe getting ready to start a qualifying run, a lot like the 2 car did a minute ago, Steve. He was coming down through there, wanted to go slow enough not to use his tires up, and now he's on it. He's going to make a qualifying attempt.
And he's looking like he was really trying to find a good, clean racetrack. I'm sure the spotter was helping him with that.
We'll find out just how fast this bonsai run is after this. Tonight, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series takes short track racing to the home of the cold one, Milwaukee. Skinner, Hornaday, and Bodine lead the charge through a night of hot racing action. The Toyota Tundra Milwaukee 200, live tonight, 8:30 p.m. only on Speed. Let's take a look at the 10 quickest in this practice at Infineon Raceway. Any surprises you see there, guys? Let's see Jeff Green and Ward Burton.
Well, Jeff and I were talking about Ward Burton. It's been a few races since Ward Burton ran here. In that race team, I talked to Chris Carey and that group. They went to VR and tested their road course car. They talked to Jeff as well. They were not that happy with their results when they went up there. They came home, they built a brand new race car, finished it late Monday night, loaded it in the truck, and sent the truck out here. It saw its very first laps when it touched the racetrack for practice, and there you see Ward up in the top 10. Remember, Ward is a go or go homer. He has to qualify on time. There you see Ward there in the
good effort
car.
right now by him again, getting himself reacclimated to road racing.
Lindsay,
last time Ward was here in the garage, he said he had too much rear roll, so they went up a bit on the rear. And there's something else that's interesting. I saw another guy in here in a driver's suit. It's Tom Geyer, who is an instructor here at Infineon. And Ward came out here yesterday and rode around with him around the course, and they were going over different things like corner entry and braking points. So Tom has really been giving Ward some insight, and apparently it's paying off.
So far it is. Again, this is just practice session. As we've been talking, as we see the red flag, we have debris in one of the corners. A lot of these guys will start to step it up as we get to the end of this practice session, especially a little bit later on in qualifying.
You know, Lindsey brings up a great point. I read that David Stremme went to Virginia International and went in a two-seat car with Scott Pruitt, who also worked for Ganassi and has driven here, in fact. And he said David Stremme asked a lot of questions about braking and good points to pass and where you pass. So, you know, it's an acquired art.
It really is, Steve. And again, you know, you need that kind of assistance because these guys don't do it on a regular basis. But hey, guys, we saw when the red flag came out, this here is what they call a corner worker station around the course. You see these different individuals there with the red flag being displayed right now. That's letting everybody know that the course is basically closed. You need to take your car back to pit road or the garage area. But you see all the way around this racetrack, because it's so massive, Larry, they've got the United States Auto Club. They help NASCAR and watching the racetrack as far as oil or debris getting on the course. I mean, the course is so huge, even with the television cameras and everybody working so diligently, you can't cover every place. But with the help of the corner workers, we're able to keep the racetrack safer and keep these competitors out there, you know, doing their jobs. And from time to time, they'll hold up an oil flag to let you know that there's a trouble in the corner or something right there. But the red flag means bring all the cars back to pit road. And that is something that's a huge, huge safety benefit for all the competitors when you're running road courses. They have them here as well as at Watkins Glen.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Let's go to Marty.
Well, boys, last time we checked in with Ryan Newman, he was enjoying a little off-track excursion, if you will. Clearly, Ryan didn't like that. His next words were coming in. He said they're 15% of the 70% they need. That last adjustment helped out. He said things are still really bad, just not as really bad as they used to be a few moments ago with that last change. But Mike Nelson said, we're out of time. We've got to go to qualifying setup. So Ryan's going to try and get a few qualifying laps here in just a minute. His problem is that he's very loose in the left-handers and extremely tight in the right-handers. So they need to fix those issues. And I'm curious with you crew chiefs, what's that like? Now you've put to bed the race setup for the day. Now you've got to go to qualifying setup, and you can't work on a race setup until tomorrow. It just got to be agonizing for these crew chiefs because now they go, okay, how can I fix that? And they got to think about that for the next 24 hours until they get to practice race setup once again.
Jeff, I don't know about you. I would enjoy having the fact of having tonight to think about that and come up with a plan for tomorrow.
Exactly. I'd go back down there to the motor home or back down to the hotel and get me a little Cabernet and just kind of sit down and study my notes and relax a little bit and put it in a proper perspective. And tomorrow we would fix the problem.
And if I don't think I can fix it, I'll get a lot of Cabernet.
I would have pictured you Hammond as a Merlot guy, but anyways.
That's because of Larry.
Oh. Hey, Elliott Sadler, our trackside buddy, he's having a very productive practice. He is 4th quickest in his Dodge for Evernham Motorsports. Speaking of trackside, Jerry Rice, NFL great from the San Francisco 49ers. He's the Grand Marshal. He'll be with us a little bit in just a little while.
Yes, he will. But, you know, back to Elliott Sadler in that 19 car, not surprised to see him running well. When you look at his last 5 starts here, he's had 4 top 10 finishes. Maybe not a contender to win the road course race, but looking for something he needs, and right now that's a top 10 finish.
Well, that puts him right up there, I think, on the same category as, you know, a guy like Boris Said, Jeff Gordon, Ryan Newman, I mean, Ricky Rudd. I mean, all these things are confidence boosters, no matter where you get them from, whether it's here at Sears Point or Loudon or wherever you want to race at. If you can come here and have a solid run, it's a good way to get a little momentum going for the rest of the season.
I think we got a football at the speed stage. I want to say I completed a pass to Jerry Rice.
I saw a lot of
footballs
down there.
That's good. I like that. Kurt Busch still the quickest. He's followed by Tony Stewart, Robbie Gordon, and Elliott Sadler in the 19. Owensboro, Kentucky's Jeff Green at the wheel, the number 66 Best Buy Chevrolet. Finished 5th here back in 2002. And he's in the top 10 in practice.
And maybe not totally surprised. You mentioned the good finish he had here. When you look at Haas CNC Racing, as he ran up on Joe Nemechek and had to get on the brakes, and you saw him slide to left front, that group has been pretty solid with the car tomorrow car all year long. And you know what? This is one of those groups, talking about the 66 car, they need a good run. They're in the danger zone. They're sitting there 32nd in owner points.
I may be wrong, guys, but I just think these guys were mad at each other, 13-66. Yeah, I think a little upset right there.
Marty Snyder.
Well, guys, Kyle Busch getting ready to head back out on the racetrack, and Alan Gustafson did a little interesting thing here. Put him in qualifying trim for his last run, but they did that on old tires, trying to get a feel for how the qualifying setup was. Kyle said it's a little bit too loose for him, so what they did now, put on sticker tires, let him go out for a second qualifying run, and see how fast he is now. Lindsay?
Sadler very, very happy with his car right now. They are 6th at the moment fastest, and I was talking to his crew chief Josh Brown, who said that all 3 Evernham cars are using the same front end package. They found something in testing at VIR that they really feel is making a difference, so they're going to get Elliott freed up a little bit and send him back out.
Let's go to what Marty was talking about there. I think that's a good move what Alan did to Kyle Busch, Alan Gustafson, his crew chief. You know when you go out there on older tires, the car's going to slide around. But what you hope is it's sliding equal amount front and rear. Now what they can do is they know absolutely those new sticker tires are going to give him grip in both ends, and that he will pick up a ton of time. But I think Alan wanted to see what the balance was like on the older tires.
I think it's exactly right there. As we take a look at Robbie Gordon, it looks like he's making his way around the course very gingerly. Again, I think he's getting ready to make a qualifying run. These guys are riding around this racetrack on these new tires, and Larry, you've already talked about how important they are, these feel goods and hooking the car up. So, you know, they're getting ready to come back down here and make a qualifying effort.
Larry, you were talking about Jeff Green needing a good run in the 66. We know that Robbie Gordon has the potential. He's shown the ability to win on a road course. You know what? He's 31st in car owner points, just 66 points in front of the final car that is locked in, which is Johnny Sauter in the 70, and the top 35 are guaranteed a starting spot.
But when we interviewed Robbie Gordon earlier, you can see it in his eyes that he knows. And remember, the last 3 races we've run, Michigan, Pocono, and Dover, he's had 2 top 15 finishes, including a top 10 at Dover, that this is a racetrack here in Watkins Glen, not that he rules any of the others out, that he can absolutely be a contender to win a race. And can you imagine what winning a Nextel Cup race for Robbie Gordon as a single team car owner driver would do for that operation? I think it's endless what it would do for him.
Just recently, you talk about those good runs. You know, he has got a fairly new relationship with his crew chief, Gene Need, right there over there working with Robbie, and it seems like they've really kind of like meshed, and they're having some really good success, at least early on.
And the reason you see these guys ease around to start a mock qualifying run, 2 things. The way NASCAR will send them out later on today in qualifying, you won't run the whole course to get up to speed. You're going to basically go out into the S's. But I heard Martin Truex Jr., we played some of his in-car radio earlier. He said it just didn't have the grip the second half the lap that it did the first half. Why? Because you had more time on the tires.
Robbie Gordon, as we said, won here in 2003, but his best finish in 3 starts since then here is 16th.
He's 5th quickest right now, Steve, as he gets ready to come back here to the start-finish line. It'd be interesting to see what kind of speed he can get out of his car, because, interestingly enough, right behind him was the 21 car with Bill Elliott at the wheel, and Bill looks like he's keeping pace with Robbie pretty well, so it'd be interesting to see if both these cars can pick up, because I think they were both on a qualifying run. And Robbie Gordon goes to the top of the list, and Bill Elliott jumps all the way up to 6th, so you got to watch both of these Fords come qualifying time.
Remember where Bill Elliott won his very first race?
Riverside, California.
On a road course.
On a road course. Robbie Gordon to the top of the charts. We'll be back with more practice from Infineon here on Speed.
This copyrighted telecast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or used in any form without the authorized written consent of NASCAR Broadcasting. NASCAR would like to thank all of our loyal fans for your continued support, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.
Practice coming to a close here at Infineon. The big story today has been NASCAR has parked the number 24 and 48 teams of Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, teammates at Hendrick Motorsports. they failed inspection when they presented their cars to the NASCAR officials.
And the fan may say, wait a minute, that's not dead last. 42nd, 43rd would be dead last. But the way that qualifying is structured, the 43rd position is designated if a past champion needs to use it. If a past champion does not use it, it goes to the next guy on time to get in. So that's the reason. It's already pretty much established they will start 41st and 42nd.
And the other thing we just want to make sure people understand, we talk about a car getting a sticker. You'll see up on the upper left-hand corner of this 22 car, that little neon, almost like green colored sticker on that windshield. That means this car has been presented for inspection and has been passed. And that's how NASCAR keeps up with them. And at this point in time, the 48 and 24 had not received theirs.
Yeah, Doug Ducard at Hendrick Motorsports made reference to that earlier. Let's go to Marty Snyder.
Well, guys, it's a frantic final few minutes of practice here at Infineon, except for the 48 and 24 teams, as you guys mentioned. The work for both teams concerns the front of the race car. They're trying to get that to where it's legal. It will pass inspection. Again, NASCAR has said they must go through inspection today and pass inspection today if they want to be considered for practice tomorrow. That does not guarantee that they will be allowed to practice tomorrow. You can see Ron Malik, the car chief on Jimmy Johnson's car, working on that right front fender, bondoing it a little bit, if you will, to make sure that it will pass inspection when they go back through, when everybody else has to go through for qualifying. Steve.
Thank you, Marty. Jeff, Larry, I wanted to ask you about this. How do they get that car? The 38 there, David Gilliland, is off track. How can they fix that car to make sure it does pass inspection?
Well, they're going to have to, and they were doing this when I was in the garage earlier. They were cutting those sections of the front fenders out. I think we saw it. Lindsay showed us on Jeff Gordon's car where they had cut those fenders and put them back to the shape that NASCAR is looking for. There's a lot of damage to the back of that 38 car.
Sure is. Let's take a look at what happened to David Gilliland, who's
gets loose right there at the top of the corner, running in the tire barrier.
Todd Parrott and that group, I think they possibly will try to repair this car, but they've got a lot of work to do between now and qualifying.
See the damage to the rear of the 38. David's a California driver.
And Larry, I don't think that he's backed off too much. I think he was checking to see if the tires were up. And he's trying to see how the car feels, realizing they're running out of time.
And this is another one of those cars. We talked about Jeff Green. They need a good solid run, sitting there in the danger zone, 33rd in the owner points with this 38 car.
Well, there's a new leader atop the speed charts. That would be Bobby Labonte out of Petty Enterprises. Jamie McMurray's been in the top 5 all day. And look out for the Canadian Ron Fellows.
Right now, if our go-or-go-homers, if practice into now, it would be Bill Elliott, Ward Burton, Dave Blaney, Paul Menard, Boris Sett, Butch Leitzinger, and Scott Riggs of the go-or-go-homers that would make it in if this was qualifying.
So closing minutes of practice. Big story of the day. Of course, the 24 and the 48. Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, their cars were parked by NASCAR for failing inspection. We'll continue to follow that story here on Speed. And in fact, John Roberts will have NASCAR Live in just a few seconds as this story continues to unfold at the Infineon Raceway. Thanks for being with us for Nextel Cup practice.